ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivra Jagat Acharya Soter Srila Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapur Dham ki Puri Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Yamuna Mai ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembly of Vaishnavas. All glories to the assembly of devotees. Glories to the assembly of devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Om Ajnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakana Lalita Shri Vishakadvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vishubhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mare Kabando Matsangin Madguro Manmadana Madnistaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostite Asaru Saru Tadayan Hatini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Karachirmam Premno Hitkatayospara Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrita Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nasta Praeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Shevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. Was the sun bothering you?
Yeah, I moved, not because I don't like it. It's just the sun, I don't like the sun beating on me. Thank you, Greg.
When Lydia was looking at you, I was thinking, oh. She was like,
It's not there now. No, the sun doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it.
so we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, chapter number 31. Narada instructs the Prachetas, text number 24, but I think we're going to read the translation for 22. Well, you said we didn't do 22?
Yeah, 22 was good.
Okay, we'll read the translation and purport of 22, and then we'll read the translation of 23, and then 24 together. 22. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is self-sufficient, he becomes dependent on his devotees. He does not care for the goddess of fortune, nor for the kings and demigods who are after favors of the goddess of fortune. Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Purport. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is worshipped by all materialistic men, including big kings and demigods in heaven. Lakshmi, however, is always after the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he does not require her service. Brahma Samhita says that the Lord is worshipped by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. The Supreme Lord does not require service from any of them, because if he so desires, he can produce millions of goddesses of fortune through his spiritual energy, the pleasure potency. This very personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, becomes dependent on the devotees. How fortunate, then, is a devotee who is thus favored by the personality of Godhead? What ungrateful devotee will not worship the Lord and enter his devotional service? Actually, a devotee cannot forget his obligation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even for a single moment. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that both the Supreme Lord and his devotee are rasagya, full of transcendental humor. The mutual attachment between the Supreme Lord and his devotee is never to be considered material. It always exists as a transcendental fact. There are 8 types of transcendental ecstasy, known as Bhav, Anubhav, Stahi Bhav, and so on. And these are discussed in the Nectar of Devotion. Those who are unaware of the position of the living entity and the Supreme Person, Krishna, think that the mutual attachment between the Lord and his devotees is a creation of the material energy. Actually, such attachment is naturally both for the Supreme Lord and for the devotee, and it cannot be accepted as material. 23. Great sage Maitreya continued, my dear King Vidura, Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus describe all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Prachetas, after you return to Brahmaloka, and we'll do this one together. Te pitan mukha niryantam Yasholoka malapam Hare nishamya tatparam Dhyayantas gatim yayu Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasholoka malapam Hare nishamya tatparam Dhyayantas gatim yayu Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasholoka malapam Hare nishamya tatparam Dhyayantas gatim yayu
Te pitam mukha niryatam
Te pitan mukha niryatam
Yasholoka malapaham
Yasholoka malapam
Hare nishamya tatpadam
Hare nishamya tatparam
Dhyayantas gatim yayu
Dhyayantas gatim yayu Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasholoka malapam Hare nishamya tatparam Dhyayantas gatim yayu Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasholoka malapam Hare nishamya tatparam Dhyayantas gatim yayu Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasholoka malapam Hare nishamya tatparam Dhyayantas gatim yayu Te the Prachetas Api also Tat of Narada Mukha from the mouth Niryatam gone forth Yashaha glorification Loka of the world Mala sins Apaham destroyed Hare of Lord Hari Nishamya having heard Tat of the Lord Padam feet Dhyayantaha meditating upon Tat Gatim unto his abode Yayahu went. Translation. Hearing from Narada's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquish the ill fortune of the world, the Prachetas also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. Please repeat. Hearing from Narada's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquish all ill fortune of the world. The Prachetas also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, meditating on his lotus feet. They advanced to the ultimate destination. Purport. Here it is seen that by hearing the glories of the Lord from the realized devotees, the Prachetas easily attain strong attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then meditating on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord at the end of their lives, they advance to the ultimate goal, Vishnu Loka. It is sure and certain that anyone who always hears the glories of the Lord and thinks of his lotus feet will reach the supreme destination, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 1865. Manmana bhavabad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuram mameva shashi satyamte pratijani priyosime. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my very dear friend. In Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Namaste Jivanandaya Dasa Panachayane Prabhupada Valadaya Sanyasi Avananaya Jnana Dvanta Kamyam Tashtita Patitadmanam Jnana Gurutaya Chitaya Chakshashena Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadade Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pastakadi. So, one of the predominating themes of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that hearing is a very quintessential factor. Shravanam, the process of hearing, is the main process by which one goes back to the spiritual world. And Prabhupada says in different purports, hearing is the most important process. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked what's the most important process, he said chanting. So we can just to say, conclusively that hearing and chanting is the most important processes. But of the two, chanting depends upon hearing, because in order to chant properly, you have to hear what you're chanting. And in order to chant Bhagavatam, you have to hear Bhagavatam. So chanting is ultimately dependent on hearing. So therefore, it's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So the first stage of advancing in spiritual life is Shravanam. And that Shravanam is developed by Seva. Shrushusho Shradanasya Vasudeva Kataruchihi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Apunyatirthana Shevanat. It's described by Sutta Goswami in the second chapter of the first canto, text number 16. It's described that great service is performed when those devotees who are served, when great devotees are served, Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra, great service is performed. Such a person who serves these great devotees develops Vasudeva Kataruchi, he develops a taste in hearing nectar, the pastimes and the activities of Krishna. So when we have a desire to serve Srila Prabhupada, because he is the pure Mahabhagavat, when we take up his service and we serve those who are serving him, we'll develop a taste in that service. And therefore, so much of our service is about our mentality. It is about our mindset. What is the mindset by which we're doing service? Are we doing service to please Krishna? Are we doing service to please Prabhupada? Or are we doing service to amplify and boost our false egos? Once you go into a society, which we call ourselves the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, society comes with other things: society, friendship, and love. Srila Prabhupada speaks of these things a lot. So-called society, friendship, and love, he says. And so, even though we're in a society of devotees, we don't want to take it in the way that Prabhupada's saying. And when he says society, that means I want to have a good reputation. I want to be seen as a great Mahabhagavat. I want to be seen as a great devotee, great religious person. Because factually, if that is our desire, then we're going to have to suffer. And in reality of matter, we are not great religious personalities. We're fallen souls simply trying to do some service for Krishna. At least I'm a fallen soul. And we really have so much little qualification to speak about Krishna and to do service. And so therefore it behooves us to become compassionate with each other and realize that Lord Chaitanya loves all the devotees. He loves everybody trying in Krishna consciousness. And therefore we should try to love all the devotees too, even though there are so many faults. Because we're all trying to become purified. So this hearing process begins by seva. And when you go into the assembly of devotees, you have a seva mentality, service mentality. And then that taste for hearing and chanting develops naturally. it'll develop easily if one has a serious mentality of seva, but one has to scrutinizingly observe their own mentality. So this hearing is so powerful because when you hear about Krishna consciousness and you hear the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's to be understood that this hearing is not coming from the place that regular sound is coming from. Normal sound starts in the ether and then goes into the mind, and then from the mind it comes into the physical, more and more gross. I'm sorry, normal sound starts in the mind, goes into ether, and comes into the gross. And then we can hear it with our ears, and that's vibrating air molecules, and we can hear it. But spiritual sound does not start in the ether. Spiritual sound starts in the spiritual world. It's Shabda Brahman. It's eternal sound, and this is why the Vedas are considered eternal scripture versus the other scriptures of the world. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada in one purport he explains that the Bible and the Quran are also bona fide scriptures, but they're not considered eternal scriptures. They're manifestations of God's message in the material world for a certain time, place, and circumstance that'll then cease to be. But the Shabda Brahman, the Vedas, are eternal because they're spoken by the personality of Godhead. Therefore, they're called the Shruti. They're spoken by Krishna. They're the breath breathing of the Supreme Lord. And then there's another form of scripture called the Smriti, which is that Shruti which is being explained by the sages. That's also eternal. So, why is hearing so important? Sutta Goswami, actually Shaunaka Rishi says, Ayorati vaipumsam udyamastam chayanaso tasyarte katino nitya uttama shloka vartaya. Something like that. That middle line I messed up a little bit. But by rising and setting, both by rising and setting, the sun diminishes the lifespan of all, except for those who spend their days hearing and chanting the glories of Uttama Shloka. So when you listen to Krishna consciousness, when you hear these beautiful pastimes and activities of Krishna, you gain immortality. Once Srila Prabhupada was in a very, very disturbing lecture. He was preaching to some very disturbed individuals, and they were very aggressive and very non-submissive and humble. And one of them angrily asked Srila Prabhupada, "What will this chanting do for me?" Prabhupada closed his eyes and he said, "It will save you from death. It will save you from death." Why will it save us from death? Because by hearing about Krishna and by chanting about Krishna, one is immediately placed on the eternal platform. One is understanding that I am the soul. Because the material body relates to country, relates to family, relates to society, relates to friendship, relates to love, relates to my religion even, my look. But the spirit soul relates simply to Krishna, and it relates to other living entities in connection and in relationship with Krishna. And that means trying to relate with love. So, therefore, when you are hearing about Krishna constantly, then you can understand that I will not die because I am eternal. I'm connected with that eternal person. And therefore, as we hear, we become purified. And as we hear, we become aware of ourselves as always in Krishna's company. Shukadeva Goswami's first instruction is Shrutavyadini Rajandra Nunam Shanti Sahasrasha Apashitam Atmatatvam Grihesha Grihamedinam. Describes that for those who are not self-realized, there's many, many subject matters for hearing. But for those who are self-realized, they want to hear about those matters which are in relation to Krishna's devotees, Krishna's service, and Krishna's activities, his form, lila, qualities, and so forth. And in this way, they relate back to the Supreme Person. They always remain connected to the Supreme Person. So the hearing process is the fundamental process of our devotional service. If it is neglected, we can understand that our devotional service is neglected. Because people are so attracted to magic in this world. And even devotees are very attracted to magic. And what I mean by that is they want to have a mystical experience. They don't understand the practicality of devotional service. We hear so much stories about the Shaktipat gurus. He touched my head and I became enlightened. Of course, there is a science behind that, but people don't understand that because the person who has that touch of the guru has already undergone years and years of sadhana, and that's just a kind of a mercy to unlock. And that's all in the Kriya Yoga systems and so forth. But in any case, people want to have some mystical experience with a person. And you see it also in the world of Christianity. You see, the Holy Spirit come upon someone, these ridiculous televangelists. It's like ridiculous, he's like flinging his jacket out and the whole crowd is falling. It's ridiculous. And they don't actually say anything of any value. People want this magic. They really want to have some magical experience. And that's valid. That's bona fide. We should want to have a magical experience. Life is meant to be magical and beautiful. And this is not going to give us magic. And then you find people, devotees take this same mentality and they apply it toward the guru and the devotees. So I'm initiated now. I am free of all my sins. It's true to a degree. And, because I'm connected with this pure devotee guru, I am somehow or another liberated. I'm a pure devotee. And then they take the guru and they take it as an element or an ornament of their false ego. Because my guru is very important, therefore I am very important. You see, just see me next to my guru. You see how important I am, because my guru is very important. Therefore, you must understand I am important. This way the false ego will hijack our spiritual lives. And I know, I've known devotees who they have like Mahabhagavat gurus, but then they're like smoking weed and doing all kinds of nonsense. And then they say, well, Prabhu, your guru is not a pure devotee. And in a similar way, the disciple, many times he wants to project upon the spiritual master or the devotees. They think, oh, these devotees, he is wearing saffron. He must be completely pure devotee. Sometimes in India, especially from Indians and people from that part of the world, they do this a lot. And actually, I am suffering like anything, all material desire. But just the way that we deal with it is different. That's all. Unless one is a Paramahamsa, then we're all sadhakas. We're just trying to do our best. And so we shouldn't project upon someone that they're a mysterious, magical, powerful individual. Now, the guru is not an ordinary person by any means. We're not trying to say that the guru is an ordinary person or that Vaishnavas are ordinary persons. Because why are they not ordinary? Because they're engaged in Krishna's service. They're engaged in hearing. But what makes them not ordinary is the fact that they are engaging in Krishna's service, which is principally hearing. The magic is the hearing. And so Lord Chaitanya and Srimad Bhagavatam, they really demonstrate this very, very conclusively. How many fire yagas did Lord Chaitanya do in the Chaitanya Charitamrita?
What?
How many fire yagas did Lord Chaitanya do in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? I can't think of any. I think maybe in his sannyas initiation, there was a fire yagya. I don't remember conclusively if that was mentioned, but it could be assumed. But Lord Chaitanya wasn't going around, giving people beads and having fire yagyas. Lord Chaitanya's process of initiation was the Bhagavat Marg. Chant Hare Krishna. Bhajo Krishna, Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna, Shiksha. Chant about Krishna, hear about Krishna, and follow Krishna's instructions, and worship Krishna. That is the process. And so any person who is encouraging you in that way, that person is a spiritual master and should be respected, not necessarily on the same level as the Diksha Guru, unless they are on the same level as Diksha Guru, but should be respected. And so in this way, all the devotees are trying to encourage each other. Just by seeing a devotee engaged in enthusiastically hearing and chanting, we can feel inspired. That I may also enthusiastically hear and chant like this. Simultaneously remembering that this devotee is not perfect. This devotee can make mistakes. This devotee is a sadhaka like me, but I acknowledge and admire their advancement. So people want to have this, this, it was Lokika Shraddha, it's described as. Lokika Shraddha means that one is in village faith. It's village faith. That the village faith is that I was chanting Hare Krishna and, I had all these mystical experiences. I saw lights and I saw, whatever people say, so many crazy things, And, we hear so many crazy things. And then the advanced devotees never say anything like that. Never hear them say anything like that, unless they're very humbly saying it. Because the spiritual experience is real. It's not made up. It's not some concoction of your mind. It's a real experience. And the mind so desperately wants to have something more than mundane life that it'll create all kinds of illusions to have a so-called spiritual experience. But the real spiritual experience is, let me surrender. That's a spiritual experience. Let me hear about the process of surrender, because surrendering really means tearing yourself apart. It means standing up and taking that Shabda Brahman, which is essentially the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has given us some service. He's given us the opportunity to be with the Vaishnavas and serve. And sometimes it feels like horrendous to continue on because, the world is happening, material world is happening. It can be very difficult. The mind and the senses are always trying to defeat us. And still, if we want to be dharmic, we have to get up there and do our service. Despite how blissful or happy or unqualified I feel to be doing that service, let me continue on. Because I have faith that this service will purify me. And so this is the beautiful magic of Krishna consciousness, is that if you live in that way, you actually become purified. Your heart becomes lighter. Your mind becomes quieter. And you find peace in that surrender. And because you're really, really trying to live the truth to the best you can, then you become powerful. You become inspiring. You become enthusiastic. You become filled with the Spirit of God. So it's not that just by meeting some great spiritual personality that one is immediately purified, that, it's so mystical. I saw Krishna behind the bush. No. No. The process is that if you meet some great spiritual personality, then what does this mean? It doesn't mean anything unless you hear from them, you serve them. Like if you go to the CVS on Skyline, then you'll see my Guru Maharaj there all the time. He's always there. And the bank there by where he lives, you're walking around in khakis and, a polo shirt. And people are, passing by and so many things are happening. They have no idea this is a nice devotee of the Lord. They have no idea. So there's no service, there's no inquiry. So at the best you can get is a Gyata Sukriti. Because maybe you did something nice, you held the door or something. So you get some Agyata Sukriti. But what does that Agyata Sukriti ultimately get you? What is the result of Agyata Sukriti? The result of Agyata Sukriti is that someday you'll be able to associate with the devotees properly. And so most of the sadhakas, in reality, were also on that platform. We've not yet really taken to the association of the devotees in the proper way. At least I'm speaking for myself. That, we still have so many offensive mentalities. It's described that if you have hate in your heart for one devotee of the Lord, there is no potentiality of you going back to Godhead. Zero. So, therefore, we must continuously pray and chant and keep ourselves encouraged to come to that higher level. And that's why by serving the devotees and hearing, we can actually come to that level. And the hearing process is described very vividly in the second chapter of the first canto, wherein it says, after one develops that Syan Mahat Seva, that service to great souls, and has this Vasudeva Katha Ruchihi, and one is developing that Ruchi for hearing and chanting about Krishna, then Shrinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Yabhadrani Vidanoti Sarit Satam. That Krishna within the heart, he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed a desire to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So Krishna will cleanse our heart by this hearing process, but that requires sincerity. What is that sincerity? That sincerity is that let me continue hearing. I think any devotee in due course of time has to realize that I am totally and utterly unqualified to perform any type of devotional service. I have no potentiality or ability to perform such service. And what to speak of, sometimes one of the qualities of a devotee is expert. But if we think we are expert, we are not expert. We are not expert. Krishna is expert. Srila Prabhupada is expert. What are we? We're simply empowered by them. Prabhupada never thought himself. So this is nonsense. So in any case, we have to always remember that when things are going really difficult, still let me hear, let me chant. Let me not give you up, Krishna. This is the real test. We hear this matra sparshashtakonteya sitoshna sukadukada agamai paino nityastam statikshava bharataha, that the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course, like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons, O son of Kunti, they arise from sense perception, and one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. What does that mean? The Mayavadis think that means I don't feel emotion. So they just kind of repress and they just look like they're really cool. But what does that mean for a devotee?
You have emotions, but you don't have to act on your emotions.
It means that I feel everything. Actually, a devotee feels things more. If you break a devotee's heart, if you do something you hurt, they're very much more hurt. Their hearts are softer because they chant Hare Krishna. So the pain in the devotee's heart may feel more than the so-called non-devotee. But in any case, no matter how we feel, I'll be there doing my seva, fighting the battle, doing the books, getting on the Vyasa-san and preaching. And even though I'm completely unqualified to do so. And in that way, we hope and we pray and we beg that Krishna will somehow or another grant us a single droplet of his mercy. So, therefore, the Vaishnavas, they are valuable as much as that we can hear from them and we can serve them. Krishna says, Tadviri pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. These two things, Tadviri, you're inquiring submissively. Pranipat, you're bowing down before, falling down like a stick. Pranipatena, sevaya, and you're serving. So this is the process of receiving transcendental information. That I'm hearing submissively, I'm rendering service humbly. Those two things are the processes by which one is going to receive spiritual information. And the magic is in that spiritual information. And that's what the whole Bhagavatam is really stating, is that Krishna is magical. Krishna is wonderful. And we're not wonderful unless we're connected to Krishna. Ritertam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani. Tadvidyadatmano maya. Yata basho yata tamaha. Whatever there may be in existence is completely illusion if it's not connected to Krishna. So when we're not connected to Krishna via the process of transcendental sound, we are also in this mundane platform. And no matter how much how mystical or how long your beard is or how orange your clothes are. You're just mundane as long as, if you're not connected to Krishna. No matter how many crystals you have, you can have the big ankh and the third eye piece, you can have whatever you want, but still, you're not factually connected to Krishna, then there's nothing. So that connection to Krishna comes by having that desire to hear and that desire to chant and that desire to follow my vows and my service as long as I can, with as much enthusiasm and power and determination as I can. And in this way, the Tattvadarshis can reveal the truth to you. The Guru can give you the real mercy. What is that? Yajgata na punar moham. There's no more illusion. Na punar moham. No more moha. That's the result of seeing a spiritual master. You'll see every living entity as part of Krishna. That's the real result. And so, what to speak of, how could we possibly have enmity in our hearts if we see everybody as part of Krishna? So, therefore, we should not think, oh yes, my sadhana is good. I go to Mangalartik every day. And actually, one devotee said, because in Mayapur, there's many senior devotees. Many swamis and sannyasis live in Mayapur, ISKCON, and you very rarely see them at Mangalartik. Very rarely you see any sannyasis at Mangalartik. You'll see some of the younger sannyasis, and you'll see certain older sannyasis, but it's very rare to see like Shivaram Maharaj, I've never seen, or some of these very senior sannyasis there at the Mangalartik in Mayapur. And you think, the young devotee could think, I'm more advanced than Shivaram Swami. I'm going to Mangalartik every day. But this is nonsense. So we don't want to judge. We don't even want to care. Maharaj has his own program, obviously. But the idea is that these prescriptions that Srila Prabhupada have given, they're for me. They're for my rectification. They're not for you. They're not for me to, unless I'm in charge of you, unless I'm your guru or I'm your temple president or I have some, actual spiritual authority, and then I'm actually qualified to have that spiritual authority, then why should I even think about what you do? I see that you're trying to serve Krishna, that's all. That's the better option. But we're not perfect. So this is seva plus hearing. And everything comes from this hearing. Dharma prodita kaitavotra paramo niramat saranam sitam Vedyam vastavam atravastu shivanam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrita Kimba Pararishvaraha. That this Srimad Bhagavatam is compiled by Vyasadeva in his maturity. And it's completely rooting out all the cheating religions. And therefore, as soon as one is established in this culture of knowledge, the threefold miseries, by submissive hearing of this Srimad Bhagavatam, the culture of knowledge and the Supreme Lord is established in one's heart, and one is freed from the threefold miseries of material existence. So the very second verse of Bhagavatam is indicating that the process is hearing. So the mystery and the magic of Krishna consciousness is in that one is connected to this mystical power of this sound vibration, which is factually spiritual. It is Krishna himself, his spiritual sound. And when we connect to that, that's it. That's the magic. That's the power. We look at someone like Vaisheshika Prabhu. He's so powerful and so effulgent. But he's constantly hearing, constantly engaged in hearing and chanting so nicely, so attentively, so seriously. And therefore, he can do mystical things, quite mystical. You see him do books or you see him preach, you see him inspire people. It's very mystical. But this is because of that transcendental connection to that sound vibration and to the book Bhagavad and the person Bhagavad. The next verse in that series of shlokas describing the power of hearing. After Krishna cleanses the heart, Nasta Preshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. That Krishna in our heart by rendering service to the pure devotee and by hearing Bhagavatam regularly, all that is troublesome in the heart is practically eradicated. And that loving service to the personality of Godhead is established as an irrevocable fact. So if you're having some issue in your faith, then you hear more, because then it becomes an irrevocable fact that, yes, this is real. I remember when I first started chanting, and I always kind of laugh at this, because I remember thinking, am I doing this right? I always remember thinking that, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Like I was always thinking that, is this working? What if I, better, you ask all the people ask all the weird technical questions, like, all these different things. What should I think about? And, all these things you hear about chanting. And I remember thinking, is this working? But now it's like, yeah, it's definitely working. There's no doubt about it, because it's, it's as fallen as I am. Krishna's taken me a long way. And so, that becomes an irrevocable fact. Yeah, if you chant Hare Krishna, and then you see how everybody who chants Hare Krishna, wherever they're at, this happens to them. They change. Krishna changes their heart. So it's amazing. It's really amazing. It's magical. It's a mystical movement when we live in that world. We don't want to project upon any devotee that they should be perfect. We should understand that every devotee is challenged in so many ways. We don't know what anybody could be going through in their own mind. What to speak of devotees who are at the temple, their life is completely public. And so, all of those things that you may deal with at your house, alone in your room, we are dealing with in front of everybody. So it is not so easy. One thing that hearing teaches us too is it teaches us how to interact, especially hearing about Chaitanya Charitamrita. How do we interact? We don't know how to interact, right? This is a big issue. This is the biggest issue in the world. We don't know how to interact properly. And it's not easy to, even after hearing, it's not always easy to learn how to interact properly. So it is a process. And therefore, what is the very first quality of a devotee is forgiveness, tolerance and forgiveness. As Prabhupada said that there's no question of spiritual advancement unless you can become forgiving. So what is that forgiveness? That forgiveness is that I understand that you are a conditioned soul. One of Vaisheshika Prabhu, he has this lecture, it's called, like what to do if you fall down. And he has these kind of affirmations. And one of them is like, these things you think are what makes you fall down. One of them is like, I am not a pure devotee. I am not liberated. He says, you need to say these things to yourself every day, because these are the people who fall down usually think like this. I'm a pure devotee. I'm liberated. No, I'm not liberated. I'm not a pure devotee. Rather let me just, even if I am, and I may not know it, just let me be a sadhaka. It's a safer place. So, how do we interact? The Chaitanya Charitamrita teaches us how devotees are interacting with each other, with forgiveness and with mercy and with love, with encouragement. And, once I got in a big, huge, terrible fight with my god sister, Yuvati Gopasundari, once over Vyas Puja. And she's a very intense lady. I'm quite intense when I get into the serious Guru Seva mode. And somehow or another, my service was miscommunicated to me. And I told her, oh, well, you didn't communicate that. And then she proceeded we had a very ugly exchange. And it really damaged our relationship for the whole time I was in Mayapur, not the last time previously, but it hurt my heart because Yuvati is very dear to my heart. She's a very dear god sister. She's a very dear servant of my spiritual master. And she was going through a lot at that time, a lot in her own life. And then this year, she didn't even know I was coming. She was like there at Gurudev, and I got out of the car, and it was kind of a little awkward, but we were, going to, service together and, eating with my Gurudev and whatnot. And then, we had kind of become more friendly, but then the last night I was there, and I told her, I said, Yuvati, I am so deeply sorry for, offending you, and I want you to know how much you mean to my heart and how dear you are to me, and how, this whole time I've been out of Mayapur, I've been suffering in my heart because I have damaged that relationship, which meant so much to me. And I don't think that, I can ever possibly have Krishna's mercy unless you forgive me. And then she started to cry, started to weep. And she said, Prabhu, I'm so sorry. I am so fallen, actually. I was so crazy at that time. And so this beautiful interaction healed. And I felt so much bliss, actually, because I felt Krishna was really pleased by this interaction. And I went and I told my spiritual master, I said, what happened? And he said, yes, he said, the tendency for the conditioned soul is to throw a relationship away if anything breaks. That's the tendency for a conditioned soul. But the spiritual minded person realizes that it's actually very easy to fix a relationship if we're willing to let go of our false ego. And so that instruction very much went deep in my heart. I carry that with me, that, it's very important to learn the way of interacting. And I'm a person who's forced to apologize a lot. So it's actually very empowering to learn to humble ourselves and apologize to the Vaishnavas. And even if we think we made an offense, we should apologize. But to speak if we're offensive like me. So anyhow, there's so much to hear. That's the point, is that how could we know any of this without hearing? Because everything that otherwise a materialist is hearing, especially in Kali Yuga, you turn on the TV, they teach you how to interact, right? Fighting, drama. It's literally drama. That's why you watch the television, because it's drama. Fear. I always laugh in all these, movies I used to watch as a kid, it's always like the guy who's just terrified of death. No matter what, there's someone terrified of death. Death is hanging over every single movie arc, every single plot. Death is hanging over you, And it's like, and I'm thinking, for a devotee, it'd just be like, whatever, it's not even worth it. Just kill me, so, and attachment. Oh, so much attachment. I'm attached to my, so-and-so. I got to get revenge, and all these processes of interacting. And then, how do men and women interact, And I grew up watching James Bond, so complete and utter misogyny, so there's so much wrong with what the materialists are hearing. And then even in the colleges, you're not hearing anything of any value. There's nothing of any value the way they teach. They teach women that they should act completely adharmically. They teach men to act completely adharmically according to their dharma. And so now the families, they can't have any type of peace because men and women don't know how to interact with each other. So there's a way of interaction. And someone can say, we hear this sometimes, we don't need the Krishna culture. We don't need the clothes. We don't need anything. But actually, Prabhupada in the introduction to Bhagavatam, he says that this is a cultural presentation. So Bhagavatam is a cultural presentation. It's not just your own personal enlightenment. It's a process of enlightening the culture. It's a cultural presentation. So we accept a cultural presentation. We're accepting a culture of knowledge, and we're trying to live in that culture. That culture of the Bhagavatam is perfectly demonstrated in the CC, how the devotees live. And so we can also learn and take and be inspired, but not unless we hear. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Chandrika Sarvakanti.
So you're talking about like interaction and like that, and like materialists, when they, like you said, there's a lot of like fighting and drama and all of that goes on, and that sort of stays sort of embedded within us, within our conditioning. And so like when we become a devotee, and like you said, our hearts are softer and more loving and like that. So, but I still think that sometimes devotees don't really communicate with each other there's a difference between being friendly and being a friend. And it's like devotees can be friendly a lot, but not really a friend. And so therefore they don't really always understand what they're going through, and they don't take the time to really understand it, but yet will make a judgment and throw a judgment out there. And I find that that's very disturbing because, that's no different from being a materialist. So, when we're hearing and chanting, we should be really releasing ourselves from just judging and not really being a friend. Anyway, just if you want
We
to.
hope we can. That's all I can say. It's like, yeah, you're right. But, some people it's not so easy. All there is to it. It's like we have to see that they are hearing and chanting. Maybe they're not being a friend. Krishna is the only friend. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. We think that we're a friend to anybody. We're in Maya. Our friendship is that we can give someone Krishna. And, that's a big element of our, we actually think, I want to be the supreme friend. But we're not. But in any case, we should learn how to interact better. We should be a friend to someone by helping them come close to Krishna. But, unfortunately, we're so much of the time devotees have been damaged, conditioned, and we have hope against hope that somehow or another, by chanting, they'll come to that point. What's important is we don't want to put ourselves above them, because we think, I'm enlightened in my interactions, but they are not enlightened in their interactions. We don't want to think that way, because then we'll end up slipping into the mode of passion, and inevitably we'll make a fool of ourselves. I guarantee it. That's a process that happens. And so, Prabhupada is so compassionate. Prabhupada was such an example of that level of compassion. I had a dream of Srila Prabhupada recently, the only dream of Srila Prabhupada I ever had. And in the dream, I just opened this door and Srila Prabhupada was sitting there. And I just started to cry. And I just, by seeing Prabhupada, I realized that he is capable of saving me. With no doing of my own, Prabhupada is capable of saving me. And he's willing to. That's what I realized. It was a realization because I was thinking, I'm so fallen, I'm so horrible, I'm so rotten inside. And even though I'm chanting, even though I'm trying, what hope do I have? And then when I saw Prabhupada, I realized I'm so far from Prabhupada. I'm so small and tiny compared to this soul, so that there's really zero, what I can never be this way, but Prabhupada will give me mercy, and he wants to, and he really wants to. And so all we have to do is just make our sincere effort. And so we should realize, think never anybody worthy that I'm worthy, or they're not worthy of the mercy, because Krishna liberated Putana, and so I've yet to meet a devotee who is sucking the blood out of children. I've met a lot of pretty quirky and weird devotees, but I've not met anyone sucking blood out of children yet. So, we have to see like that. We have to see like that. And, devotee even may hurt us. And I asked my teacher Srivas this in Mayapur, what if a devotee, hurts you or is so obnoxious? He said, sometimes devotees are so obnoxious, but still we have to find a ways and a means to serve them. And thank you. Anything else? Divyavana.
That means sucking the blood out.
Well, that's what Putana would do. She would eat them. She was like a vampire.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, yes.
I just remember that there was this one advanced devotee, when I first came to the temple, and I was so struck because she said, "How's your consciousness?" And I thought, wow, and my ex-daughter-in-law now, my grandson's mom, she just loves me because she says, you saved me. You know, not that I saved her, but I gave her Krishna. And she was like, and she chants, and she, you know, she's really endeavoring, and she felt like that was the greatest gift, you know.
So you're the real friend.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that, and so that's why, like, you know, devotees who are engaged in trying to do something for Krishna, it's like we're not worthy to do this service, but Krishna's giving this opportunity. And so, like, we're sacrificing. Everybody's trying to make sacrifices to serve best they can. And they're trying to spread love. And so, like, if they make mistakes and they do so many things, then still we have to see that actually they're still more munificent than any materialist who may seem like a nice guy. You know, they're magnanimous souls trying to do something to serve Krishna and help people become devotees. And it is not easy. So therefore we should try to be compassionate. And we learn that by hearing, especially CC. You know, all devotees should read CC 1,000 times. It's the best. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.